Hello, Fall 2025 Block 2 students. I'm making a recording to cover the certification testing handbook in the case that there are Zoom issues. I have been having Zoom issues, so I'm going to go ahead and make this recording just in case. So I hope everybody did a hard copy of their handbook. And if that's the case, please take that out now. If you have not already done the acknowledgement of receipt of the handbook, please take care of this. I think there's a few that are left that have not done this. I'm not sure. Let's see. I think this link, yeah, this link is working. I don't know if that link is working in the handbook that I actually sent you earlier through the EAB system, but you should be able to use the QR code. Now, if you know you've already completed this, please do not do it again. You only need to do this once. But if you haven't taken care of it, then I'm going to wait here just a minute. Make sure at the bottom of the page, once you fill that out, that you hit the submit button, because if you don't hit the submit button and close it out, it won't come to me. So if you'll just get this taken care of, and then we'll have that cleared up and out of the way. You can see here that we've got a table of contents for the handbook. This should help you to identify where everything is in the handbook. The dark bold ones here are the main topic of those pages with items underneath them there. Here is the contact information for Educator Preparation Services, which I will be referring to as EPS. If you have questions concerning admission continuation or teacher certification, then please contact Ms. Music. You can see all the links in the electronic form of this handbook are active. So if you go to this, well, here we go. This will take you to all the pages. Now, if you want field experiences, you'd go here. All of my pages are going to be under certification testing. And then there's resources here. Let me see if TEP is going to be admissions and certification. So for all testing pages, they're going to be located underneath certification testing. If you need a current copy of the handbook, if you didn't retain it, then on this first page of certification testing, well, we're on Educator Preparation Services. So let's just click certification testing. This is where you'd go down here to the handbook to get the handbook that you need. You could click on that and the handbook will come up. And then you can see all the other pages here: registering, retest approval, testing policies, and test study guides. So we will go back to the handbook. But please pay close attention to these. Right now, we're filling the field experience and clinical teaching. We don't know yet who's going to be in this position, but we hope to have that filled within the next month. We are currently without a director as well, but we hope to have that filled shortly as well. As you can see, for my preferred method of contact, I would prefer that you give me a call. If you email me, depending on the length of the answer, if it's just a yes or no answer, that's not an issue. But if it's going to take longer than yes or no, I'm going to ask you to please give me a call. That way I can be sure that we're on the same page and that you're understanding exactly what I'm telling you. So this handbook will cover two different processes related to certification testing. The first one is gaining initial testing approval for your content area, science and teaching reading, also known as STL, and the English as a second language that we refer to as the ESL and or special education specialist, if that is applicable. So how you'll be gaining initial testing approval through your academic department, and then also registering for the actual Texas examinations of educator standards, which is more commonly referred to as the Texas exams. And these are the exams required by the state of Texas for teacher certification. Now, contained in this handout are the answers to the most frequently asked questions that deal with certification testing. We cannot possibly go through this entire handbook in this sitting word by word. But this has probably the answers to most questions that you could possibly ask about certification testing, but it's going to be up to you to go back in and then read it thoroughly and carefully to make sure that you understand all of the information. I am going to be presenting a lot of information that at times it may seem overwhelming, but I want to assure you that once you get started in this process, it's not going to seem probably as overwhelming as it might from the onset. But if anytime you have any questions concerning the actual testing process, please make sure you contact me. There seems to be a tendency every semester that some kind of a crazy rumor gets started and then spread around. I can assure you that if the information is not in this handbook or if it runs counter to the information that's in here, it's probably not accurate. So anytime you have any questions, please just pick up the phone and call me and I'll be able to tell you, yes, that is an issue. No, it's not an issue, or don't pay any attention to that, whatever we need. So if you have questions that are related to the testing and retest approval requirements, then you should route those through your academic department. I'm dealing with the actual testing process itself. So if you have process questions, or for me, if you have approval questions, then you would go through your academic department, which is curriculum and instruction. Before you begin either of these two processes, the first thing you need to do is log into your Teal account and make sure that all the entered information is correct. Now, I know that most of you are going to say, well, I know I entered it correctly. I can tell you that people do make mistakes when they set up their accounts and that they don't realize that they've made a mistake. So it's going to be very important that everyone go in, check to make sure you've entered your legal first and last name. This has got to match exactly whatever you have on the legal forms of identification that you'll need to use the days that you go and take your exams, that you've entered your correct Social Security and date of birth, that you've supplied an email account that you actually use, which is preferably not an email account, because the problem is going to be if you set up your Teal account with your email from Tarleton, you're not going to be able to take that with you forever once you leave Tarleton. So if TEA ever has to get a hold of you, and there might be instances where they do, and if they do, it's very important that they're able to reach you. You want to make sure that you put an email in there that you're actually going to use. They're never going to send you any kind of spam. They're not going to sell your email, so you don't have to worry about that. Just put something in there that you know you're going to maintain and you're going to be checking regularly. And then you need to make sure you've completed your profile, including gender and ethnicity. Several of you, when you set up your accounts, left this empty. I sent out emails to people to say, hey, go in and fix this. Some people did, some people didn't. But in order to get test approvals, you have to have your gender and ethnicity in there. So everybody should be checking your Teal account. And then also keep in mind that your Tarleton email account is the official means of communication. If we have to send anything out of EPS and we're sending it to a group, it's always going to go to your Tarleton email. The subject lines will have something like certification testing, admission status, field experiences, clinical teaching, residency, those type of things. So please just get in the habit of checking your Tarleton email regularly. Make sure things are not going to your junk or spam folder, and just stay current with whatever information we're sending out. And then lastly, you're going to know where the web pages for all certification testing information can be found, which we just visited. But here again is an active link that'll take you to those pages. So next, what Texas exams will I need to take? So this table outlines all of the exams related to the certification areas under which you were admitted into the teacher education program. So my suggestion would be to find your certification area in the left-hand column, highlight that, and then highlight the exams that you need. Most of you are either going to be the early childhood pre-K through 3 or the core subjects with the special education. You want to pay particular attention to the numbers of the exams that you're going to be taking. These will also match whatever study plan that your department will be requiring you to complete in order to get testing approval. So just make sure that everything matches up between what exams you have to take for certification purposes and what you may be required to complete through your academic department. I don't think there's any middle school people in here. They have a separate class for the middle school. But if anybody is a 4 through 8 content area, then you can also find the exams that are related to your certification area. And then obtaining initial test approval. You're going to be completing test preparation materials for your academic department while you're in this class. This is EDU 3331. This is Block 2. You will be getting approval for both your content area exam, and then in one of your reading classes, you will be getting approval for the STR. Now, the department sets the requirements for what you have to complete to get that initial approval. So your course instructors will be telling you whether you're just going to be taking a representative form or whether you're going to be completing a study plan through a paid test preparation company. Typically at this point, it's 240 tutoring, but they're going to tell you what you have to complete in order to get testing approval by the end of the semester for those particular exams for your content and the STR. And then the approval for the ESL, and if you're a special education student, if that is applicable, then you will be gaining test approvals while you're in TR1, which is the Block 3 semester. So don't worry about those exams at this point. Your course instructors will be giving you more information next semester about what you need to complete. Right now, you're just going to be focusing on your content area and the STR exam. What you're going to do for me at this point is you're going to complete a request to test form for fall Block 2 candidates, and you're going to be submitting this to me immediately. So once the testing talk is over, then I would say go in, work on this form, and get it sent to me. You need to be careful. We're going to go over the form, but you need to be careful that you've completed all of the information that's requested in there. Now, once received from your academic department, the approvals will be entered by the end of the semester once you have completed the requirements to gain initial test approval. I will put those in the system within 5 to 7 working days after receipt from your academic department. So the first thing that you're going to do right away after the testing talk is you're going to submit that completed request to test form for me. Then you're going to be working on test approval materials for your academic department for the content and the STR exams. And then they will be sending, your academic department will be sending those approvals to me to enter those into the system. Once I receive them, it typically does not take 5 to 7 working days for me to enter those. I typically stop whatever I'm doing. We just have that time built in if for some reason I'm out on vacation or if I'm out ill, something like that. But it's almost immediately after I receive them. But don't expect that just because your department has said, yes, you have approval, that those approvals are going to be entered into the system immediately. It has to go through the workflow to get to me. You will just need to begin monitoring your Pearson account. That's going to be your testing account, and we're going to look at how you get that set up. But you'll be monitoring that for entered approvals because separate notification of entered approvals will not be provided. I have too many people who are getting approvals at all different times for different exams, and I cannot keep up with sending out separate notifications, so you'll just have to monitor your Pearson account. And then please keep in mind, Tarleton cannot approve you to take any additional exams that are not part of the certification fields for which you were admitted to the teacher education program. So if you back up and look at this testing chart, whatever your certification area is and the exams that are associated with those particular certification areas are the only ones that Tarleton will approve you to take. Now, it's very common when you're out in the field that maybe a school administrator will say, we'd like to hire you. We also want you to get additional certification. You're not going to be able to take those exams until a later time, and that's after you receive initial test approval. So we absolutely do not approve any exams outside of the area for which you're being admitted into the program. You were admitted into the program, so just keep that in mind. Now, submitting that initial request to test form, you're going to do this immediately, but please follow these instructions thoroughly and carefully. You need to fill out the form, and we will be reviewing the form. You fill it out. It should be typed, not handwritten. So you're going to type the form on the online request form. And I think that there might be a problem with this link. Let's take a look here. I think there's a problem with this one. Maybe not. Yeah, page not found, but the link is listed and the on the one of the last pages of the handbook. So there's another way to get to this. There's also the way to get to it through the certification testing pages. So this is not a working link, and I apologize for that. I think this was a form from a year or so ago. You're going to complete the form, making sure that you've checked and filled out all applicable boxes and fields. Then you need to save that completed form to your device and name it Request a Test Form 4 with your legal first and last name. Then you need to check to make sure that your saved form is not blank. So once you've saved it to your device, close it, open it back up, and make sure that everything is filled. For some reason, depending on how your device is formatted, sometimes it gets sent to me and it's blank. So if that should happen, then you would need to print the form, scan it before naming it, save it to your device and send it to me that way. And this needs to be sent as a PDF. Please do not change the format of this and send it as a Word. It needs to be sent as a PDF. That's how the form is built. So please save it that way. And then an example would be request a test form for Madison Cooper, just a made up person. Then you're going to attach that named request a test form to an email to me, just strong@tarleton.edu, with request a test document for, again, with your legal first and last name in the subject line. If for some reason you want to hand deliver it, then you could just bring it to Math 101D here on the Stephenville campus. Now, if you want confirmation that your form has been successfully sent and received, then on your end of the email, you have to set up either a request a delivery receipt and or a request a read receipt. Now, there's two different functions, so you can do one or you can do both. And that I will kick back the yes on that. But you have to do that on your email. You do not send a separate email that says, did you receive my items? I do not respond to those. So just make sure if you want that confirmation, you set it up on the email that you're sending to me with the attachment for the request a test form. If you're not sure how to do it, then you can go into the help feature of your email platform and search that, and it should come up. So just make sure before you submit that to me, you've checked the document carefully, and then please just submit it once. So let's take a closer look at the form. As you can see, the form must be typed. There's all kinds of information under Part A. This is all required information that I need for reporting purposes. So just make sure you're filling in everything. Read this carefully, everything that's being asked, your legal first and last name. Make sure you're supplying your Tarleton ID. Make sure you are submitting your TEA ID number. That'll never be any longer than 7 digits. Remember, you set that up when you were in block 1. And so you're going to provide that. Then you're going to check the box for whatever your campus designation is, put in your address, and then a primary phone. If you have an alternative phone, put that in. And then same for primary email. This comes into play if you want me to be able to contact you at a different email other than a Tarleton email. If you've got one that you use more frequently, if I have to contact you as an individual, I will use that email. Otherwise, remember, if it's going out to the entire group, then it's going to go through the EAB system and it'll go to your Tarleton one. But if I have to contact you as an individual, then I will use whatever primary email you list here. Then select a gender and ethnicity. Please pay attention to this. Gender and race/ethnicity selections should match the TEA account information. So whatever you put in when you set up your TEA account, you should be supplying that very same information to me. Under race and ethnicity, you're only selecting one box. Whatever you put in for your TEA profile, that's what you're going to be selecting here. You're not going to be selecting more than 2 because TEA doesn't allow you to select more than 2. So whatever you selected there, please make sure you're being consistent with the information that you're providing. Under program verification, you are going to be checking traditional teacher education program, this big box here. And then whichever your content area is, whether you're early childhood pre-K through 3, or if you're EC through 6 core subjects, or the special education core subjects is over here, you'll be checking that box. If you're 4 through 8, then you would check that box. But I don't think we're going to have any 4 through 8 people here. That's all you're going to be doing under Part B. Now, please notice this form that is included in your handbook, if you look at the watermark here, it says sample form only, use fillable form found online. I realize that that first link doesn't work, but there's a link towards the end that does work. So please don't fill this out. If you fill this out and send it to me, the watermark is going to print and get in the way. Also, if you save this, you can end up sending the entire handbook to me, and I don't need that. So Part C, you are going to be checking the box for whatever the semester was that you made application to the teacher education program. And probably for the majority of you, it was either the spring or the summer of 2025. It was something different, than put that in. Expected program completion, probably most of you are expecting to finish fall of 2026. And then everybody should be doing the year-long residency, which is 2 semesters. So you would click the year-long residency box, and then you're going to click fall and spring. And for this group, if you're going to finish in fall of 2026, for this group, you're going to click fall and spring, and then out in this line, you're going to put 2026. If you know it's going to be something different, then put the different thing in there. Put the different year, put the different semesters in there. That's all you need to do on the first page. On the second page, you are going to check all exams you will be required to take. So you'll want to refer back to the chart that shows what exams you're going to have to take. You're going to have to find your content and click that. Probably the majority of you are going to be core subjects. And then most of you are going to have the Science of Teaching reading and the ESL. If you're special education, that's down here. It's a special education. If you are an early childhood person, your content exam is in the second box. And here's the difference. The exams up here are the exams that are offered continuously by computer. Now, dates are still going to vary depending on the testing location that you choose. But these exams do not have specific windows on them. They're offered continuously, and it's just going to be a matter of where you test, if they offer it every single day or if they offer it only twice a week, that kind of thing. Now, the early childhood exam has very specific testing windows, and the importance of this is going to come into play when it comes time to meet the test by and the pass by score dates. We're going to get into that. So you'll have to pay really close attention to this. Also, this red asterisk you can see here after some of these exams indicates that those exams have specific score posting dates, like the Science of Teaching reading. If you're a 4 through 8 person, and then also the pre-K through 3. So we'll take a closer look at that. But for the most part, most of the exams that y'all will be taking will be offered on a continuous basis. That's all you're going to fill out on the second page. It's just all the exams that you need to take. This is the list of policies that govern the Texas exams here for Tarleton. The only one that I'm going to call to your attention is item number 3, and that is candidates may take only 1 exam per administration date. And that's not to be punitive to you. That is because these exams are intensive. So, I mean, the system would allow you to register to take an exam, say like in the morning, and then another one in the afternoon, or one in the afternoon and one in the evening. However, because of the rigor of these exams, what we have found, and this has been quite a while in the past that we used to allow this, candidates typically were not successful on the second exam because they were already mentally exhausted by that point. So just keep that in mind. Now, before you sign this, you please read this carefully. because as you can see, it says, I have received, read, and understand the testing policies for Tarleton State University. By signing below, I agree to adhere to the above stated policies and understand that failure to do so may result in the issuance of a flag and or inability to complete the program in which I am enrolled. So in the case of registering for multiple exams on the same day, I do record registrations on a weekly basis. If I see that somebody has registered to take two exams on the same day, first you're going to get a telephone call from me that tells you you can't do this. It's a policy not to be able to do this. And number two, I'm going to issue a flag because it's a violation of policy. So just keep that in mind. By entering your name, and it doesn't have to be a handwritten signature. Some people have the ability to put that into their PDFs. If you don't, whatever you type in here, that's just telling us that you're accepting it, that you're expected to abide by these. And depending on the severity of any breach of these, you could be dismissed from the policy. We don't want from the program. We don't want to see that happen. So it's very important that you just read through the policies beforehand, before signing this, so you know what you're agreeing to. And then the last page of the form is the FERPA consent, what we do with test scores. TEA requires us to have this on file. So you're going to just put in your printed legal first and last name here at the top. You can read through this, indicates what we do with test scores. And then once again, at the bottom here, you're going to be putting your name and date in. And yes, I fully understand that you've already supplied this information. However, TEA requires this to be on this particular form. So please fill this all in again. This is the form that you're going to be filling out. And once again, you're not going to fill out the one in your handbook because this is fillable in the handbook. You're going to go online. We're going to look at that link at the back of the handbook. That is the direct link that'll take you to it. So please do not use this one. I just got one this week that, I mean, it clearly says here, sample form only, don't use it, but it was used. So that person's having to resubmit. All right. My understanding is that most likely you're going to be using 240 tutoring for test preparation. And if that's the case, here's the registration instructions. Using this particular link and using your Tarleton email, you will get a discounted rate. Now this says $25. I'm not sure if that's still $25 or if they've raised that. So don't be surprised once you go in there. If it's $30, then they didn't inform us of a rate hike, but I've heard some rumblings about there having been a rate hike. But regardless, you get access to all available study plans for that monthly rate using the discounted link and your Tarleton email. You have to use a combination of that. And then this just walks you through the steps for 240 tutoring. Now, what I do want to look at with you is item number 4. If you are unable to achieve the required percent for every domain that the academic department may require, they give you 3 attempts at the practice exam. If for some reason you expend all 3 of those attempts and don't have the departmental requirements, then you have to contact 240 Tutoring directly. And that contact information is up in the box. Oops, I went too far. Sorry. Up here. You would contact them either by telephone or the help desk, email, contact them, and you tell them that you need to have your study plan deleted. Now, if you send the email, then you send it to this help desk with the study plan number and name, and with a message, something like, please delete this with your name and your email. Now, something to keep in mind is if you need to pull score reports, then do that before they delete the plan, because once they delete the plan, you have to start all over again. And you're not just starting all over again with the practice exams. You'd have to start all over again with the study plan, the flashcards, and the quizzes. So just make sure before you use up one of your 3 attempts at the practice exam that you have fully prepared and gone through all the materials so that you don't have to have a reset on that and that you don't have to start over again from the very beginning on that particular study plan. So also keep in mind that subscriptions auto renew on the same date each month, and it's up to you to either cancel or reactivate your account as necessary. All right, I touched on the student flagging procedure. You can see here that the flagging procedure has been developed to help identify situations that may prevent or hinder candidates from becoming the most effective and successful professional educator as possible, or performance and attitudes and behaviors that may be an indication of a low level of commitment to the profession. So if you want to read through this, and this outlines maybe what some of the repercussions can be if you get multiple flags. Flags that would come for me would be if you violate one of the testing policies, or if you fail to submit your request to test form. If I have to hit you up for the request to test form, I may hit you up once, but if I still don't get any action on that, then you're going to receive a flag because that just tells me you're not paying attention. So those would be the two reasons why I would receive a flag. But you can read this, and if you're interested in looking at the flag, here's the link that'll take you to it. It has a little bit more information on it. It's kind of a wake-up call if you get a flag to say, hey, you got to stay on top of things and you've got to be paying attention and taking care of business. All right, test takers with documented disabilities or health-related needs. If you need special accommodations for your Texas exams, you need to get started on this process right now. You need to go in. Here's the active link, but we'll take a look at this. We'll take a closer look. We'll go into the Pearson website, and I'll show you where this is located. But you need to have all your ducks in a row before you get test approvals. So in order to do that, you need to go in and you need to look at the types of materials that they are going to accept, the age of the materials that they're going to accept, and you need to have this all clarified in your mind and start this process well in advance before you get those testing approvals. Because if you wait to start working on this, you probably are not going to have those approvals in time in order to get your testing done in a timely manner. Now, EPS or the testing coordinator, myself, we're not involved with this process due to FERPA reasons. So you may need to go through the disability office if you need further assistance. Keep in mind, something to keep in mind, that if you do have accommodations here with Tarleton, that does not mean that Pearson is going to accept the same documentation that the university did. So it's not related at all. You can't just say, well, I've got accommodations through Tarleton, so they're going to transfer to Pearson. You have to go in and you have to look to see exactly what the process is, what they're going to allow, what they're going to require. So please, if this applies to you, get started on this right away. And then you can read a little bit further here. But I mean, as long as you're reading all the materials through Pearson, they're going to tell you exactly what you need to know in order to get that testing approval with those special accommodations. All right, now, as far as registering for the Texas exams, once the approvals have been entered, remember, you're going to send me the request to test form immediately. And then throughout the semester, you're going to be working on your content approval and your STR approval in your courses. And then towards the end of the semester, then your department will be forwarding those approvals onto me to enter those into the system. So once those approvals have been entered in the system, which now I'm saying here within 5 working days, I said 5 to 7 previously, and remember, it's typically not going to take that long. Your academic department is going to forward those test approvals on to me once you've met the requirements, and then you're going to start monitoring your Pearson testing account for those approvals because I don't send out the separate notifications. You need to refer to the test by and retest by dates that are published in the year-long residence testing guide tables, the following page. We're going to take a look at that. And keep in mind that failing to meet the recommended test by and retest by dates may result in delays completing the program. So it's extremely important that you stay on target with these established dates so that you don't have any delays later on in the program process or the timeline of the program. Failure to meet the passing score posting due date for content and STR exams will require postponement of TR2, that's Teacher Residency 2, until a subsequent semester when all required exams will need to be passed. We're going to take a closer look at this, so don't get ahead of me here. When registering, it's also important to check the score posting schedule for each required exam to be sure of meeting any score posting deadlines, because not all exam scores post on the same day. Some have very specific windows, so you've got to stay on top of that. Equally important, it's important that you know what your particular testing facility requires in terms of ID to get in. So when you register, they're going to give you all kinds of information for whatever testing facility you select. Some testing facilities require 2 forms of identification to get in. Some of them only request 1. A lot of times it's a driver's license, and then they'll take things like passports and government issued IDs, photo IDs, that kind of things. But they're going to tell you how many and what forms. It's very important that, number 1, your items are current items, your ID forms are current. They have to be original and they cannot be expired. Okay. So they will not accept photocopies and cell phone pictures. They won't accept either one, but you can't take a cell phone into the testing facility with you anyway, so that wouldn't help. I know a lot of people keep that information on their phone. So you're going to have to actually have the physical copy, the original physical copy. You need to make sure that the first and last names that are on your IDs match what you set your account up in, not only for TEA, but Pearson. So we're going to talk more about setting up your Pearson account, but everything has to match. Now, on the day of the exam, when you go to take it, if for some reason the ID, number 1, first and last names don't match what's in your Pearson account or your testing account, then by law, they have to turn you away. Or if your ID has an expiration date and it's past the expiration date, then if that document is expired, by law, they also have to turn you away. So just stay on top of that as well. And then you need to know if there's any special tools that you may use. I don't think for these level exams, some of the high school level exams that allows you to bring in a calculator. But I think if you need a calculator for the core subjects exam, they supply it on the exam. It's an electronic copy of it on the actual exam. But you should know, if that's the case, you should know how to use it. So the safest rule of thumb is to familiarize yourself with all Pearson provided materials for each exam you need to take when you register. So the preparation materials for the exams can be found at, and we're going to go in and take a look at this, but I do want to cover the testing guide table first before we go in and take a look. All right, so y'all should be a spring residency start. So you'll be following the blue column here. So you can see that the due date for initial test approvals for the content area and STR exams, you're going to follow the recommendation by the end of the Block 2 semester of your academic department. And then the test by dates for the content area and the STR exam is recommended the January 15th. If you need a retest on either of those exams, then the recommended retest date is no later than April 15th, and then again by June 1st. It's very important that you stay on target with this, because as you can see, passing score posting due dates for content area and STR will then be no later than August 1st before the start of TR2. If for some reason you do not have either one of those exams passed by this August 1st deadline, then you will have to delay TR2 until a subsequent semester when you do have these exams passed. And if you have to delay for testing, then at that point, you're going to have all of your exams passed in order to get back into TR2, to begin TR2. So these dates were established to keep you on target. Once you get into TR1, it's going to be very tempting to let the retest slide by, but you really need to start that process right away and stay on top of it. You can also see here if you need a retest that you need to contact your academic department for mandatory remediation session dates that may be scheduled. Because in order to get retest approval, you're going to have to go back through your department. And then here's the due date for test approvals for the ESL and the special education. If it's applicable, you'll just have to follow the timeline for this. It would be possible to start TR2 before having the special education and the ESL pass, although you should have them at least attempted by, you should have a first attempt by that. However, if you complete the program and don't have the ESL pass, you cannot be recommended for certification. So that would delay the certification process. All right, but let's take a closer look at these asterisks, these two red asterisks, everything that's listed with the asterisks up here. Students who have not tested or retested by the established dates will be placed on a student success plan by their academic department. So if for some reason you're unable to meet these recommended test by dates, then you will be put on a success plan so that you can stay on target with your testing. All right, candidates are responsible for contacting their academic department or faculty mentor concerning mandatory remediation sessions for retest approvals, and that failure to meet the passing score posting due date for content and STR will result in ineligibility to advance to TR2 the following semester. I can tell you with 100% certainty, there are no exceptions to the passing score posting due dates. So even if for some reason you were to miss that August 1st date by 2 or 3 days, you would not be allowed to progress onto TR2 until you do have those done, maybe in the spring semester, or at that point, you'd also have to have your other exams, everything passed in order to move on to TR2. I'm not trying to scare you, intimidate you. I'm just trying to relay to you the importance of staying on top of your testing throughout your semesters to make sure that you get these accomplished. So candidates will not receive separate notification of entered test approvals. It's necessary to monitor your Pearson account. And then failure to meet those test by and retest by dates may result in the ability to continue on track with program completion. You're just going to need to read through this page more thoroughly here. You're responsible for contacting the department concerning mandatory remediation sessions and retest approval requirements. But then something to keep in mind is even if you do have all of the exams passed, that does not automatically certify you as a teacher. So candidates are not eligible for teacher certification recommendation until you have completed all program requirements, which includes successfully completing on coursework, having a successful clinical experience with your residency, graduating, your degree posting in the system. And then at that point, if you have all of your exams passed, then Miss Music can recommend you for your standard certification. If you're missing any one of those items, and if you don't have your exams passed, then you are not eligible for recommendation for certification at that point until all that is all done and taken care of. So just because you may finish the program and have all exams passed doesn't mean that you are certified yet at that point. For course subjects retakes, if a candidate has to retake more than one subsection for the EC through 6, there's 5 subject areas. There's ELAR, math, social studies, science, and then the last one is fine arts, PE, and health. You have to pass all 5 subjects of that exam to have a successful pass on the exam as a whole. If you have more than one subset or subject area that you have to retest, then you would have to register to take the entire exam. You would scroll through the sections that you've already passed and just retake the ones that you have remaining. The only time that you can register to take one subset or one subject is if that's all you have left to pass. Otherwise, you have to enroll for the entire exam, and just retake the ones that you have remaining. All right, and then please note here, if for any reason a candidate is removed from a year-long residency and is required to finish the program by means of a traditional clinical teaching experience, or if you have to, I should have added this in, or if you have to delay your TR2 semester, all required Texas exams must be passed by either December 15th for spring clinical teaching or TR2, or August 1st for fall semester clinical teaching or TR2. And there are some reasons we're not going to get into why somebody may have to go from a residency into a traditional clinical teaching semester. It doesn't happen very frequently, but it does happen. All right, how to register for Texas exams. Remember, first and foremost, everybody needs to go in and check your TEA account carefully for any missing information. Once again, if you're missing gender and ethnicity, then you will not get testing approvals until that has been filled in. Just make sure that you check your account for accuracy. Then at any point, you can do this now, or you can wait until it gets closer to test approvals. You need to set up your Pearson account. And one reason why it's very important to check your TEA account is because whatever information you used when you set up your TEA account, you must use the same information when setting up your Pearson account. I actually enter test approvals into TEA, but you go in and register through Pearson to take those accounts. So those two systems have to be able to talk with each other. So if you have conflicting information between your two different profiles, then the system's going to get confused. So just double check what you've put into your TEA account before you set up your Pearson testing account. And then that way you shouldn't have any difficulties. And here is the website for Pearson. We're going to go in and we're going to take a look at that. If you have problems with either one of these, there is the TEA login account assistance with a telephone number. They also have a help desk email feature through TEA. And then for help with Pearson, there's their number. I can't help you with this because I can't see what you're seeing when you actually go into register. I can see some of the items, but I can't see once you actually get into your account and that kind of thing. So they'd have to help you. But this walks you through the steps. Let's go ahead right now. And we're going to go into Pearson. I know it doesn't say Pearson, but it's Pearson. Notice up here, every single page is going to have this Contact Us ribbon at the top. So if you need to get a hold of them, anytime you're in here, you want to make sure whatever tab you're clicking on says Texas. So that's what we want. We can expand all here. So if you need to get a hold of them, there's a telephone number. You can send an email message. You can check availability for live chat. This says look for chat now tab. It typically pops up here. I don't see it right now, so they must not have the chat going, but a lot of times they do have the chat going. So that's where you would find that information. But this is a very intuitive site. So to get set up initially, you would go to register. And then once again, you always want the tab that says Texas. You'd go to register now. Okay, just read through whatever pops up here. If you already have your account set up, this is where you would put in your email and your password. And once again, I would recommend not using Tarleton because you're not going to be able to keep this. So you always want to have access to the Pearson account for further on down the line. So you would put in your email and password. If you don't have an account set up, this is where you would click down below, and this is where you're going to set it up. Once again, it's going to be very important that when you do set this up, that you're putting in the same information. Now, you don't need to use the same password or the same security question, that kind of thing. But once you actually get into the account to set it up, it needs to match whatever you're putting into your Pearson account. Or whatever was in your, I'm sorry, whatever was in your TEA account. I got to pay closer attention to what I'm saying here. Okay, as far as preparation, Oh, and if you need, let's go to the home page. If you need accommodations, this is where you'd go under home, alternative testing arrangements. And then you can select one of your exams. I don't know, you never want packed. Anytime you're into the Pearson system, you never want Texas packed. And this becomes a little bit confusing because the names of the Texas packed exams match the names of the Texas exams, that you always want to make sure you're under Texas. This last semester, I had 4 people who got confused and they took Texas packed exams. um, they cost $120 to take them, 120 to 120, 140 to take them. They don't count for certification. So if you were to make the mistake of taking a packed exam and you do not need approval to take these, that's part of the problem too. You do not need approval. These are content only exams that traditionally are used for admission into alternative certification programs. So that's why they're listed. I don't like that they have them listed first because it's too confusing. So just make sure you're always picking Texas exams. Let's go ahead because I'm assuming that most people are going to be the core subjects, EC through 6. And as you can see, they've got the exam number. Once again, match the exam numbers that are on the chart that you have with what you're supposed to be taking. So there's the core subjects. And we can expand all. And this gives you all of the information for accommodations and the links for what you need to submit and when to submit it and what they accept. So that's where you find that on the home page. It's all on the home page. So if this applies to you, remember, get started on this process right away. It is time consuming, and we don't want you to have to delay testing because you don't have something lined up. Okay, then as far as we can either go to exams or we can go to prepare, it doesn't matter, but we're going to click Texas. Once again, let's go to the core subjects exam. This tells you about the exam. You can go to prepare. If you wanted to prepare, this is where it would take you. You need to be looking at this for every exam you need to take. This is going to walk you through the standards, how to prepare for the exam, learn what the exam covers, assess how well you know the content, familiarize yourself with the different type of exam questions, how to approach unfamiliar questions. I cannot stress the importance of going through this enough. I cannot. If you're only doing what the department is requiring of you to get test approval, you're only 50% prepared. If you go in the day of the test and haven't looked through this testing information for each of your exams, you are not prepared to take the actual exams. They're going to tell you the types of questions that they ask rather, and then they're going to tell you how to answer them, to how to approach them, because I cannot tell you how many times someone has not been successful on an exam. And then when I ask them, was it a content issue or was it an approach issue? And I'll hear, I didn't know how to answer the question. I wasn't sure how they were asking it. Well, if you run through this information, they're going to tell you the types of questions that they ask, and then they're going to show you how to approach them. And they're going to give you examples of each of these questions. So this is extremely helpful when it comes time to taking the actual exams. You should be reading through this for each one of your exams that you need to take. Then once again, this is going to tell you the framework, 5 hours to take this exam. For the individual content areas or subject areas of the core subjects, it's going to show you how much time they're giving you, and then they're going to tell you how many questions are going to fall under that. So this walks through the competencies and the domains. I would be reading through this because this is going to tell you exactly what they expect you to know. And then Here are sample questions for the ELAR part of the exam. I think there's like 17 questions. I would be going through this for each of the subject areas. That's ELAR. Here's the math, social studies, science, fine arts, health, and PE. You should be doing this for every exam that you need to take. And then there's some preparation resources. Now, some of these exams, like the STR, have a constructed response. Otherwise, most of the exams, a large portion of it is going to be multiple choice. But if we go here, I'll just go up to prepare. That might be a little bit easier. And we'll go to the Texas Science of Teaching Reading. Here's the sample constructed response question. You can see that the sample selected response, which is multiple choice, you'll of course want to run through that, but you're going to have to do a constructed response. So this gives you an example of a constructed response. You'll want to run through this as well. And then I think the last thing that I want to cover in the Pearson website are the score posting dates. Texas tab. Now, when you register, whatever day you select, I think it's going to tell you for whatever day you test, it'll tell you what day your score is going to post. So let's look at the course subjects. Keep in mind that you have to have a passing score posted for your content exam. Now, it may or may not be the core subjects, but this is typically one of the ones. If you have to have it posted by August 1st, let's take a look in here. So August 1st, okay, the closest posting date then is going to be July 31st. So the last opportunity you could possibly take any part of this exam would be 7/29 to have a score posted on 7/31. Because as you can see, even if you tested on July 30th or 31st, the score is not going to post until the 4th of August. So you would not be meeting that August 1st deadline, which would mean you would not be allowed to go forward on with the TR2, with the Teacher Residency 2 semester. But I also happen to know that if we have any EC through 6 people, or I'm sorry, the early childhood people in here, the pre-K through 3, not only does this have limited windows for testing, so you have to make sure you get in on these windows, and you're going to want to start testing early enough. I would say you want to be testing by no later than this first testing window in the spring, that in order to meet the August 1st score posting date, you would have to test by no later than June 7th. So you can see if you're one of those people that's the pre-K through 3 early childhood, you've got real tight windows here that you're going to have to pay attention to. Now, it may be possible for you to get test approval before the end of the semester to meet the November window. I really don't know what your department's going to be requiring of you, whether you'd be able to test by that or not. Otherwise, you're going to have to use this as the first testing window. But this would give you 3 opportunities at that exam in order to get it passed if you needed multiple attempts at it. And then the Science of Teaching Reading, which I think most of you are probably going to also need, this has even different windows. This one takes about 2 weeks to post, so that you can see if you were going to meet that 7/30 or the August 1st score posting date. 7/31 is the closest one here. Otherwise, if you waited and tested later in July, then you're going to miss that by 2 weeks, that the August 1st score posting. So just stay on top of this. This is offered continuously. You can look at these dates and you can see that it's continuously, but because this has a constructed response to it, it takes longer for these exams to get graded. So the score posting dates on these are not as available as the EC through 6 core subjects. And SPED, you're going to want to take, if you're a SPED person, you're going to want to take a close look at those too, because, and you want the special education specialist. This has specific windows as well. This is a brand new exam. This has specific, well, it's continuously offered. You can see that it's continuously offered. It flows right into, but it has very specific testing windows that are even different from the STR. So you'll just want to take a closer look at that. All right, I think that's all I'm going to cover in Pearson. It's a very intuitive site. Very few problems with the Pearson website that I've been made aware of, and I think that Pearson has been very responsive to get people's questions and concerns and issues addressed when there has been any. But then this walks you through the steps of actually registering for the exams. All right, certification exam reimbursement program. This is something that's brand new that the president just started last semester. So Tarleton State University will reimburse the cost of required entry-level certification exams, and that these exams all apply to you. With the successful completion, the passing of all required exams on the first attempt. So referring back to the list of exams that you'd have to take on the table towards the beginning of the handbook, once you have taken all of your exams, and you'd have to wait, even if you're taking STR and your content, and you pass those before going into TR2, if you're not testing the SPED or the ESL until your TR2, then you're going to have to wait until you've tested all of them. If you have passed all of your required exams on the first attempt, you are eligible for exam reimbursement. But you have to wait until you've tested all of them. So you can read through the requirements here. Once again, I'm reiterating that you have to successfully pass all required exams on their first attempt, and then you request reimbursement after all exams have been taken and passed. And then all of the submissions are verified for accuracy. So to submit a request, and there's a timeline that you have to do this by, but to submit a request, you complete the online request form, or they call it an application, and provide the required documentation of successfully completing the exams. Include all exams on one single application, listing each one on the exam name line. Now that's going to be confusing because once you go in, and here's the link, they make it look like you do a separate application for each one. You list all of the exams on one line. Maybe we'll go in and take a look at this. And then you will be required to include documentation of the amount paid, which can be obtained by downloading a copy of your view order history in your Pearson testing account. Okay, let's take a jump here and see what this takes us to. They don't have quite the same information here. Let's see, request exam reimbursement. The confusion comes where it says, please list the name of the exam that was taken. Well, some of these programs that are eligible for reimbursement only have to take one exam, so they didn't take that into account. You would actually list all of the names of your exams on this line. So do not submit separate forms for each exam. And then the last item on here to draw to your attention is Reimbursements are processed by business services and may take up to 2 months or longer to complete. EPS has no control over the processing time, so please be patient. You're actually submitting this through scholarships. Scholarships is sending it on to the president's office. The president office sends it on to me, and they usually only send reimbursement verifications at the end of the month. And then as soon as they send it to me, then I have to verify that the person is eligible for the reimbursement. It goes back to the president's office, and then it goes to business services. So depending on when you submitted your application, it can take 2 months, and I've seen it take even longer than that for reimbursement. So please be patient. If you contact me and say, when can I expect reimbursement? I'm not going to be able to tell you. I mean, I'd be able to tell you if your eligibility had been confirmed, but that's all I can tell you. I can't tell you when business services will be cutting any checks or anything. So just keep that in mind. All right, the next pages here is if you need to do a retest. Now, state law requires if you need to retest, there is a 30-day wait period between attempts. So if you take your content exam and you're not successful and need a retake, all that means is the system is not going to allow you to register then sooner than 30 days since your last attempt to retest. Now, that does not mean that you wait 30 days to start the retest approval process. You need to get started on that right away. So once you get a score, if you see it's not a passing score, then you're going to be contacting your department or your faculty mentor, say, okay, I need remediation for this particular exam. And then they're going to tell you if you need to do a scheduled remediation workshop with them, or if they're going to have you just run through this. So we're not going to go through this closely, but you can see that there's first request to test information in here, and then there's second request to retest, and then continuing on to if you need a third or fourth request to retest. Keep in mind that most of our candidates are successful on the first attempt. If they need a retest, then typically they're successful on the first retest. There is, by state law, Tarleton can only approve you to take an exam a maximum of 5 times. If you exceed the 5 times, there is a waiver process that you can go through to go with the state to get a retest approval. However, it's very costly. It's like $160 or $178 to submit to them. And then that's just to review your request. And then if they approve your request, then you have to go in and you have to pay for the exam as well. So it's very time consuming as well as costly. If you're doing everything correctly on the front end, and if you're using 240 tutoring for test preparation, and if you're using it in the manner in which you are intended, in which it is intended for you, you should be able to pass these exams. But here's the remediation information. I get asked about test preparation resources. Now, keep in mind that it's my job to get you through the process, but it's your department's responsibility to make sure that you are prepared for these exams to be able to pass them. So here are the items that I'm aware of. This is all that I have available. So most of these links, I believe, are still working links. I did have to change a few up, but I think most of them are. Some of them are free. Some of them are paid. But you can see if you go into YouTube and or Google and just do a search for free Texas study materials and then put in the name of whatever the exam is. You want to include the name of the exam. There is all kinds of information available online out there that you might find useful. And then a lot of these are specific to either ESL or the course subjects. I don't know about the special ed, if these are because the exam has changed. So I don't know how useful that these would be, but they're still available the last I checked. All right, we're not going to run through this line by line. Some of this is information that's already been covered, and some of it will be new. So I'm going to read through this quickly, just hitting the high spots. and just go under the assumption that you are going to sit down and read through this thoroughly so that you know exactly what's being given here. So you've got to be willing to thoroughly read all of this information. It's taken a lot of time to put it together. It's for your benefit. Please use it. You're required to complete that test approval requirements as set forth by your academic department. Remember that you're going to submit that request to test form to me right away. And then content area and STR test approvals are due during this semester while you're in block 2. And then you need to start following the testing guide table outline on that previous page to meet those recommended test by, retest by, and then the required pass by deadlines for program continuation. Once those testing approvals have been entered, you can begin registering for on the Pearson website. Remember, you might want to highlight this. Do not confuse Texas PACT exams when registering. Just make sure you're always selecting Texas. If you have a documented disability and need special accommodations, you need to get started on that right now. You've got to follow the dates outlined on the testing guide table. Currently, the cost of all Texas exams range from 120 to 140. It just depends on if there's a constructed response. If it's a constructed response, then it's going to be the higher cost. If it's all multiple choice, it'll be the lower cost, and they are all computer administered at this point. There's nothing paper-based. So when you go into a testing facility, you're going to be sitting at a computer testing. We only allow candidates to take one exam per calendar day. Make sure you pay attention to that. I will catch that when it comes time for a recording registration. So I do look for that. Your score report is going to be available in your Pearson account within 3 to 4 days of testing. Remember, I showed you how to look at when the score posting is depending on the exam and when you test. Now, something to keep in mind that a passing score for all exams is a 240. A perfect score is 300. So as long as you score the minimum of 240, then you've passed the exam. Item 10, you do not need to submit your Texas exam scores to me. I will have them before you have them. In most cases, scores are going to post on a Tuesday or a Friday. I think Pearson tells you you will have your scores by 10 p.m. of that day. I normally have them by 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning. Please don't send your scores to me. It's not necessary. I will already have them. So there's no need, and I stay on top of those. So there's no need to send them to me. We've already talked about that state law requiring the 30-day wait period between attempts, but once again, do not wait the 30 days to begin the retest process. You want to get started on that right away. Any retakes is going to require candidates to complete additional study plans and or additional preparation requirements, but that's going to be determined by your academic department. We just talked about the state law that permits a total of 5 attempts for any given exam. That's 5 attempts that we can approve you for, but there is that state waiver process that you can go through with the state if it's needed. Keep in mind that the vast majority of our candidates are able to pass all exams with minimal attempts. We talked about setting up your TL account, making sure that you've checked all of that information. Please, I cannot stress this enough, that you go in to check, especially check to make sure that your gender and ethnicity is entered in there. And then when you go in to set up your Pearson account, it should match and just be consistent with all of your information. We talked about legal identification. It has to be original and it cannot be expired. You can choose any testing location that you want to test. You're not limited. Something that you will want to keep in mind, however, that if you, depending on if you have a special accommodation that you need, not all testing facilities are authorized for all of the different accommodations. So depending on what you're requesting, there may be specific testing locations that you're limited to. So keep that in mind. We talked about your Tarleton email being the official form of communication from the EPS office. Remember, that's if we're sending out bulk to everybody. I will use your other email if you provide that on the requested test form if I have to contact you individually. Just make sure item 18, when you register, that you read all of the information that they're presenting to you to make sure that you know what is restricted items or what are restricted items, what you can and cannot take with you into testing facilities. We talked about laying out for a semester. Also, if you have any changes in your status, if you decide for some reason that you need to delay a semester or that you're no longer interested in pursuing teacher education program, please meet with your faculty mentor. Keep us apprised of any changes. This can impact our field experiences, especially with our relationship with school districts. We need to stay on top of the information that we're providing them on our candidates. So please just make sure somebody knows. Educator preparation services should probably always be contacted if you're making some kind of a change. We talked about passing the Texas exams does not certify you as a teacher. When you do graduate, your teaching certifications are not listed on your diploma. Only the official name of your major is listed. Your certifications will be listed on your teaching certificate that is issued by TEA. Otherwise, Tarleton may know what your major is. They have no idea other than we know here in EPS, but Tarleton as a whole doesn't know what you're getting certified in as a teacher. And then adding additional teaching and certification fields. If you want to add additional areas, you have to wait until you've been awarded your standard certificate by the state. Then once you've done that, then you're free to go back into Pearson. You can test any one of those classroom level certification areas, but keep in mind that as you pass them, you still have to go back through TEA and apply to have them added to your certificate. They will not automatically add. So you'll have to stay on top of that. Then applying for the Dennis P. McCabe Student Endowment Scholarship. There's a page following that they can offer multiple semesters on the scholarship, but you have to specifically apply for this. They've told me in the past that every semester money gets left on the table because people don't apply for this. There's 4 different qualifiers. As long as you meet one of them, chances are it's guaranteed award. So you might want to look into that. If at any time that you have questions about exam approvals, if you're wondering, do I have an exam approval? Go into your Pearson account and check for approvals. Please don't contact me and say, do I have approval? Because my first question to you is, have you checked your Pearson account? Anything that you have an approval for should be in there. If you're expecting approval and you don't see it in there, then you might want to contact me. If you've given it enough time to go through your academic department and then to get on to me, if you've given it enough time, then you can check with me. I do make mistakes. Sometimes I fail to hit the button. There's a save button, and if I don't hit it just right, sometimes it doesn't save the entry. So there have been cases where you should have had an approval, but the approval didn't complete once I was in there. Once again, if you have questions, my preferred method of contact is for calling. And then you can read through this. It's important that you continue with test preparation between the time you receive testing approval and the time you schedule to take it. So just stay on top of that. All right, here's all the active links on one page. This is where you can go. This one is working for the request to test form that you're going to submit to me. So this is a working form. So it's slow to load here. The boxes should be loading. I don't know why. There we go. All the fields are loading. If you have questions, either go back and rewatch the portion of this recording that you need, or give me a call and say, what do I need to put here? And I'll help walk you through that. There's the Dennis P. McCabe information. Contact scholarships if you have any questions. And then the last page here is the certification testing flow process. So I've tried to walk through step by step so that you can check this off. This just might help. I was asked to do a flow chart. I couldn't figure out how to put it on a flow chart and fit on one page without it being too wordy. So here's a checklist, and I've put this in chronological order. So hopefully that helps. So I'm going to do a stop share here. Hopefully at this point, if you've got questions, go ahead and contact me. I'm more than happy to help you with those questions. If you're watching this as a class and you need help, then um, um, your course instructor can either give me a call and I'll answer questions, or if they want to schedule a time for me to come in just to address questions, I'm happy to do that too. So however you want to work that. So I have nothing else to add here other than thank you very much for your attention. Once again, I know it's a lot of information. I know it can be extremely overwhelming, but every semester our students find that once they get started in the process, it's not quite as intimidating or overwhelming as it appears in the presentation. So that being said, I'll say thank you very much for your attention and best wishes this semester. And in your future semesters, you're getting prepared to head into Teacher Residency 1. Thank you again. Bye-bye.